All right. So, Sat Shri Akal, everyone. We'll go ahead and start. So, my name is Bob Singh. I'm a computer science faculty at the Anza College. So, a little bit about myself. I'm a software entrepreneur, software engineer, and a college counselor. So for the last 7 years, the experience that pertains to this audience, I've been doing college counseling for about the last 7 years, serving a few hundred students. And so the process and methods, I've made them kind of open source. So I'm training a lot of folks to become volunteer counselors so they understand what it takes to be a college counselor, right? And this is all done in Sevaru across here at San Jose, right? So today's agenda is to do a deep dive on helping you understand what college counseling is all about, what it takes, right? So there's an overarching goal for every student, right? That you want your college profile to be that. Our intentions are, through our work, to strengthen your college application profile, starting as early as grade 7. And if we get some 6th graders, so much the better. I think they're welcome to join. In middle school, we'll be in a little bit of an exploratory phase. And then we get quite serious as we go from 9th all the way up to the senior year, when we spend more time with you to kind of present your application by the time you're in senior year. So the work here is to partner with volunteer counselors that will help shape your students' persona, which is a pretty valuable journey. How so? Why is the persona so important? Who you are and how you present yourself authentically has rewards, has results for you. We all come with our strengths and weaknesses. Just like the body's immune system, right? It leverages its strengths to combat the weaknesses. If you go back and study a little bit of immunology, whatever that is, right? I'm not going to go there too much in the subject, but the idea is my strengths can be leveraged to combat my weaknesses. So let's say I'm an 8th grade or a 9th grade, and I'm pretty good with getting grades. I get A's, but I don't spend that much time studying. And life is chill, right? Life is good. Is that good? What do you guys think? Students in the room, let's talk to you. You're getting A's, right? But you don't have to study all that much. It's easy. Is that a good thing? To not focus on perhaps other things and say life is chill, right? What are your thoughts? Can I get some participation?
No.
I'm not going to
Yes, participation. No, it's not good. Sorry.
Thank you for the response. So that becomes important. So then what else can you do? Well, if you're, it's a spectrum, right? So what I'm trying to focus on is the importance of your persona, your value system, your traits. And we're going to, as you enter into the program, this program is one-on-one. We're going to try and understand who you are in a 3-hour test, that 3-hour persona test that we'll take. But then persona becomes the nucleus of our work. So whether it's classes you take, to extracurricular activities you get into, to interests that you develop because you want to figure out your major choice. I mean, you don't want to, our parents, like during my time, and my time was like 2 generations ago, right? We were told to become doctors or engineers. And the complexity of college admissions was not so vigorous. right? If you look at 2024 and a bunch of students I'm helping, there's over 96 different classes among different high schools that you can take. Just to give you a little bit of complexity, 96 options. And if you are in a prep school or in a private school, you might have a lesser depending on the resources. And then you go to a university, right? It's not like they're just looking at academics, they're looking at who you are. Pretty much every school. Now, every school has a flavor. MIT is different than Harvard, than George Washington, than Stanford, and so on. Each school has a persona. I've covered about maybe 300 universities over my career in the last 7 years in trying to understand the persona, but I've started to understand some patterns around what these schools are looking at. So, can you get into the best school possible for your persona? Absolutely. But it's all relative. The equation has become complex. So that's where our work shapes in. So we will be partners with parents. We want parents engaged as much as possible. We know you're busy, but we want you engaged in the process. So you understand what we are doing. And since we are also working with minors, right? Even until the senior year, we can't claim. We know that. So parent approval is a must, right? So let's try and understand at a very high level the target. If we are hyper-focused, results are better. But we can't be hyper-focused. Depending on the persona, if the student is like, well, I don't know what I need to do or want to do, then that takes a little bit of cultivation and time. If I don't think I've had a 7th or an 8th grader yet that says, hey, I want to become a doctor. Like, do you really want to become a doctor in AI? Right? Or if machines are writing, thank you. If machines are writing code, do you really want to be a software engineer? Right? So we have to cultivate. But once we know what you want to do, then we become adaptive to the requirements of what interests you.
तो बेटा निकाल लिया एक्सेल
9th, 10th, 11th grade, you're still challenging you to say, hey, is this really what you want? Because guess what? High school is a playground. Think of it as a playground where
बेबी
you cultivate your
आई एक्सेल निकाल ले
It's not a thing where you say, you can play around, is how I look at it. Semantically. Play around, not, I mean, you also have sports, but I use that as a metaphor.
आई एक्सेल का ऐप भी वो मतलब खान
My
अकेडमी
likes and
की ऐप भी
dislikes
है
should be cultivated in high school. In our guidance, we garner that. Okay. So key to entry and key to selection. Most schools, when admission counselors are taking a look at your college app, they're looking at your grade point average and test score.
Didn't I send you?
Now, of late, we have heard, well, UCs are not looking at
तेरे क्रोम में saved है
SAT or achievement tests, right? Well, let me ask you this question. If a student gets
ये मेरी
1580
मीटिंग चल
on
रही है
their
इसमें से
SAT,
तू
which
निकाल
is
ले पासवर्ड
score,
क्रोम में जाके वही ये इन लोगों ने मीटिंग भी रख रखी है जूम पे
and it's presented on a UC app for admission to the top 3.
उमापति UMA PATI
What's going on is schools are covering their back for equity. But when you have good data and it's presented, it's good. That thing becomes part to the entry. You also have support systems from your schools. Public schools have it more than I've seen with private schools yet. Navian. That's a decent tool that helps you address and understand these two elements. So one is GPA, the other is the test score. So if let's say you apply to Cal, and let's say you are a 4.0 student, and you have a 1600, does that guarantee that you are going to be admitted in Cal for the major choice that you are set? The answer is no. Because the number of students, so there are several factors that play here. It's not a simple game. So what's the complexity? How many students applied for a given major that year? What school you're coming from? And how many students were admitted? Because there are preferences for certain public schools in California with UC. You'll often see or hear from your friends or kids' friends, this is talking to parents and students, you guys will hear that we got a lot of students admitted to UC Davis this year. So are there quotas? Not really, right? It's a way, and then there is also the financials of the UC system that play a role. They may be wanting to get students from out of state for balancing the budget, which has nothing to do with your GPA and test scores. Right? These are overarching factors. Then you have to think about the major choice. Is it an impacted major? Impacted major is where, what that means is that once you, like computer science, you must apply into computer science and you cannot make the change. And they have a tight pool of students that are applying. They have a very strict selection criteria. And if you're admitted, you must be successful. Anything tech related today that has high demand is impacted. Sometimes we circumvent that too. We'll go into and just maybe it's like I work with some great 4.0 students. We'll apply to School of Letters and Science at Cal, get admitted, and then they'll have maybe 4 or 6 courses that they will have to take. Yeah, they take those and then they're admitted into the impacted major. So there are ways around, right? 55 to 60% of the criteria is key to entry. And with mindfulness to some of the things I mentioned that admissions officers are taking into consideration when admitting students. The fact that you have data on Naviance that's representing data for the prior fiscal academic years, like 23, 22, etc. It gives you an idea, right? So sometimes students look at it and say, well, there was a 3.2 student that got admitted to Cal, so I'm going to apply. And there was you kind of get a green check mark or a red cross as an indicator on the visual charts that Naviance provides. But that can act as a good gauge. But then what else? I want you guys to focus on the keys to selection. Keys to selection. Keys to selection means, are you a well-rounded student? So you can obviously see the 4 things, but let me give you an example. Because examples perhaps speak a little bit more than just words. So I'm just thinking of some students that I've served in the past year. So had a student in 9th grade, a 4.0 student, dropped to 3.8 in 10th grade, wants to go into a medical school. So I looked at his persona. He's an introvert. Everyone understands an introvert, an extrovert? Yes? Shall I share my definition? Or somebody tell me, what's an extrovert? Am I an extrovert or an introvert, in your opinion? What do you guys think? Yeah. Yeah, I look like an extrovert. I'm actually an introvert. Yeah. Imagine I go to a party with my wife, right? I'll be following her. Rather than talk to the folks at the party, right? I'll be talking to her for the most part. And then she'll lead me on for the social engagement. But in a setting like this, I'm pretty comfortable. So what's the difference? What's the difference between an extrovert and an introvert?
I'm in charge.
Yeah. So none of us are completely an extrovert or completely an introvert. I mean, if you look at it, a sliding scale, right? Introvert at on a scale at 0 and extrovert at 100, we're somewhere in the middle, or leaning a little left and leaning a little right. So I'm a little bit of an extrovert. You're not completely wrong about that, right? But it's a sliding scale. So extroverts tend to do all the conversations and they get energy from people. And that's when they start thinking. So if you're having a meeting with your friends in your school and you have an extrovert, they'll come and say, let's do this, let's do that. And what will happen? They'll start ingesting ideas, taking ideas from you, right? And then that gives them energy, and then they build on your ideas for fulfillment of project outcome. Introvert would be somebody that has done all the thinking, knows the answer, doesn't know. It's not going to share it with anybody. Now, schools are looking at your persona. Are you an introvert? Are you an extrovert? What are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? Right? And the genetics of the applications today is such that all 4 of those criteria have things, sorry, I'm trying to point to all 4 of these things, have things embedded to the intention you have suggested for your major choice. You can't make up stuff. That's where authenticity becomes really important. So I was talking about the student, 9th grade 4.0, 10th grade 3.8. I don't know what I want to do, Bob. Well, let's figure it out. So he joined me in 9th grade, and that's when I started serving him, working with him, right? I said, man, do you like coding? He said, you're a coder, so you think I like coding? I said, yeah, I mean, that's my bias. So please accept it. I'm pretty authentic, right? So like, yeah, maybe give it a go. Because I'm not going to take a class. I said, all right, do this. Go and just prove to yourself, go to Coursera, let's pick up a couple of lectures on Python, do an exercise and see if you hate it or not. He goes, I hate it. So then I asked him, I said, what did you try to learn? He just told me, he didn't do anything. He said, I don't like it. I said, but you got to try, please. It's 4 hours of your time. So that level of cultivation takes persistence, takes patience. Because authenticity is a function of speaking the truth. Not to others, but to yourself. Okay? So this fellow didn't like coding. So I said, this is my parents, my mom often suggests I should become a psychologist or a doctor. I said, we got to listen to mom, because moms know. And I'm not saying that just for the heck of it, guys, really, right? My mother wanted me to become an engineer. My father wanted everybody in the family to be a doctor.
Ashadra?
So I went out and I share my fun story. Thank you, Vita, for doing that. You can actually have a seat here. And we'll partner well in crime here, right? What did my father, I took a course in computer science. Right here, Cal State Eastwood. I got admitted to UC Davis and Cal State Eastwood, 2 schools when I came to Europe. Family was operating an ice cream store, so I stayed local. And we didn't know if Davis was one type of school or Eastwood was another. That was 1988, right? How many of you, I won't ask you how many of you were around. I think I was the only one. So I took a course in computer science and lo and behold, I flunked it. I got an F. And my professor told me I'm an idiot. Sorry, are you recording me? Okay, good for me. My prof told me I'm an engineer. I said, all right. And you know, when somebody, like, the demise is the starting point of a change that builds you to be what? मैं बड़ा तीठा when it comes to my own output. So I used a bad word in my head and I said, I'm going to change my major to computer science. And I did. My father said, I'm going to pay for school. You're on your own, buddy. Or got student loan, worked 2 jobs, rear-ended somebody with my pickup truck, working 2 jobs. I got a story. And I told myself when I graduated, the first thing I'm going to do, after some experience, I'm going to become a college professor. 1997 January, Professor George Rice, the college part-time faculty teaching C program. Now, my wife at the time said, really, you think you can teach? I said, I don't know, hon. I'll figure it out. I didn't have a master's in education at the time. I just had a bachelor's. So I stood in front of the class and I taught. Because it doesn't matter even if you have learning disability. You can succeed. So I've had students with all kinds of lack of ability, blind. They're working in the industry. You just need a support network. That's my passion. That's my affinity towards this work. Let's here's your Andy, Ayo, please. So, why do I tell my story? Persona is everywhere. It's you, who you are. Parents are done, right? You guys have careers, you guys are happy doing whatever you're doing. Right? But for the students in the room, you have to understand yourself. I'm going to help you do that, right? For 40 to 45% of the application are those things. So when I'm talking about this one student who wants to become a doctor or mom, right? My mom wanted me to be an engineer. She says, I would like 3 doctors and 1 engineer. And she always pointed at me. Niyat murad, maadi gal no naak kaun kave. So in my persona test, I talk to mothers and I ask you, what do you want your kids to be? When your child was 6 months, I ask these questions. They become very personal. Or intention becomes your outcome. So that's also part of the understanding of the persona, right? Once we understand the persona and we know the weaknesses, then typically partnering with parents is pretty easy. Parents, do we have your permission to work on the weaknesses? We're like, yeah. Let's work with the child. Let's work with the student. And above all, work with the student. Get students' permission. Beta, do you want this? Do you not want this? So all of those things happen in shaping your extracurriculars, interests, essays, and personal statements and letter of recommendation. So with this one student I was talking to you about, I put him through an earnest project. So, well, let's learn research methods. So there was a project called Digital Psychologist. 4 students, we filed a patent in the end with machine learning, making a digital psychologist using Excel and machine learning. This fellow demonstrated his excellence in medicine. How? I asked them to learn different psychological theories. Students wanting to do AI or software engineering learned about 4, minimum that I asked for. This guy learned 23. 23. And when I quizzed him on it, he knew more about it than I did. I'm like, mom said something. Okay, you better continue listening to mom. So we did. So the other thing is, This student is an experiential learner. Do you all understand experiential learning? Hands-on. Schools are, when math is taught, if you, let's say, quick example, if you have to take a theorem and you're given a live example why you should learn it, then you understand that. The why is very important in our lives, folks. Why is very important. So his why was found, right, through the work we did. And we did several more experiential projects because I was trying to discourage him and said, yeah, medicine keep karega. 10 saal lag genge." He says, why don't we have a plan B? Student is telling me that. I said, what are you thinking? He says, what if I became a nurse practitioner? Right? This is the attitude of the students today. With AI in your hands, you guys have ideas. You have a lot of ideas for yourself. So you cultivate. So he says, why can't I become a nursing practitioner, become an RN, and find I can bifurcate from there to perhaps other things. I said, yeah. So I said, let's take a ladder approach. We applied to School of Nursing, we applied for bio, and he got admitted into University of San Francisco in the nursing program. USF's nursing program is by far the best in local area because there are other considerations that the student had geography-wise and so on. He's in his first year now. And hands-on learning, if you look at the persona of USF, University of San Francisco, all hands-on. So matching the student's persona to where the student goes, I mean, he applied to Cal, he got accepted in UCLA, but he decided USF is going to be his thing. Because he didn't want to go into a bio program. He wanted to have an out. He can work as a nurse practitioner for a bit, and then take his MCAT and apply. So that's just one of the means. I work with about 22 different means, depending on, again, student choice. But what I'm trying to share with you folks through that example is, if you're trying to say you're going to do medicine, or that's your intent, then your GPA shows all the coursework that you have taken during high school. Test scores, of course, and the APs that you have taken, that speaks to a lot. And I've got lots of students that take like about a dozen APs, and then then on top of that, they have 8 to 10 college classes. How do they do it? Time management. I'll talk about that also in a little bit. Okay. Time. But then when we talk about extracurricular activities, the passion projects that they did that were related to the major choice, essays representing the essays are not like your 10th, 11th, and 12th grade English that your essays have to be vibrant, impactful. And I think we'll do some essay workshops here. There are folks that are doing Seva here that are in esteemed schools that have written the essays. They know they also will help you with the cultivation. Interests, those are important. This student started a venture, a business venture, with a funding of about $5,000 in medical supplies, related medical supplies. So there are 6 dimensions you have to show for a good college profile. So, and those are shown in both extracurricular activities and interests. So you have to, like, a typical great college profile is if you are part of the student senate, some student leadership or clubs in your school. Community group. Extracurricular activities that pertain to your major choice, and extracurricular activities that do not pertain to your choice that show you as a well-rounded candidate. Sports. And above all, collaboration. I think of the word collaboration because this room, what is this room called? Pai Mardana. I was thinking about how many of you know about Pai Mardana? Yeah. Guru Nanak Sahib started the collaboration of travel with Pai Mardana. And when he left, Nanak Sahib returned to Kartarpur and his collaboration started. Check that. Yeah. So what a room to be in. He chose the room. And little did I understand, I said, okay, I'm going to be in Pai Mardana's room. So maybe let me do a little bit of research so I can talk to folks about it. I think we should be in this room every time. Not that other rooms are not great, but the collaboration piece, it kind of, gives me the, what do you call it? Goosebumps. Right? So, letter of recommendations. If they say, oh, it's a very good in programming, I'm applying to be a doctor. Not in case. Right? It's not in case. So then you have to build a relationship with your instructors. And if you're an introvert like me who doesn't like to talk to anybody, I just like to just be by myself for the most part. Right? How are you going to build a relationship with Prof and say, hey, can you write me a letter of recommendation on this and that? So there's a process for that, right? So you can create your own profile on LinkedIn. You can write a letter with all the things you want. But if you write a letter to your recommender and say, hey, put all of these things in the letter, okay, don't I know how to write letters? You're telling me, right? Can't do that either. So you have to advocate for yourself in a very friendly. And some schools have like forms that you can fill out, and then those are given to the recommender. But generally, you leave the recommender alone, right? So for them to do whatever. So these are 4 things. And now the genetics and all of those in sum total assist you with the selection. And the stronger your key to selection is, the higher the probability. And you can't copy paste your essays, mind you. My students write, there are 8 essays for UC, they write all 8, then we select the 4. It takes me 2.5 months. 2.5 months to work on 8 essays. Because the writing style has to be just so. And then you can't say, well, I got the idea here, so I'll go here and I'm applying to my Common App 650 word essay and just copy and paste that. No, you can't. You have to think of each school that you're applying to. In Common App, there are, let's say, 15, 20 schools. I've got students that create versions of the essays based on the due date of the application. So again, I'm just speaking to persona, cadence between student and the university. So I hope you take this to heart. I've spent a lot of time on this. Persona shaping is the seva we're going to try and do in collaboration with you, with our volunteer counselors, for producing these stuff. It's not easy work. But then at the same time, if students are intrinsically motivated, and by about the 10th grade, they are. And if they're not, we inspire them. Don't push them. It's not the time. That's my suggestion. But your parents, you know what to do, right? If we inspire and there is intrinsic motivation, मतलब अंदरों बच्चा चाहे कि मैं करना है, then they are unstoppable. And I hope our work delivers that. That kids are, sorry, even if our son is 20 years old now. He's 19, but if I say 20, he says, Dad, when you make right? So kids, right? Even my niece, who's 42 years old, I call her a kid. But she's my niece, right? She's a psychiatrist, and she's a prof at UPenn. and recently left to become the head at Cooper, but I still, family is family, right? So, yeah. Understanding the target. We spent a lot of time on this. And this slide deck also I'll share with all of you guys. So these are the things we're going to work on. So how, I have a slide on also, how this will work, we'll talk about. Let's just focus on water for a moment. So 7th to 9th will start, and we're going to focus on 4 dimensions. If there's one takeaway you have today from today's call, from today's meetup, is we're going to focus on academics making recommendations for what classes the child should take, the student should take, what extracurricular activities they should pursue, depending on the person. It's like, I don't want to do anything. That's okay. Let's try something. How about this? How about that? And then let parents be patient. It's okay. Right? We never tell the child we lost money. मैं piano lessons पे पैसे spend कभी जा रहे हैं, तू सीखता नहीं. Nothing like that, right? Cultivation. It takes time. Value system. We're going to do a persona test. We'll understand. How many of you know, how many emotions do humans represent? Does anybody know? Approximately 150. We have 50 positive emotions and 100 negative emotions. We learn all of them based on our context. Depending on the environment we are thrown in, we learn. But from a psychological perspective, it takes 2 times the effort to be negative because to master those emotions. We're all very good at it, aren't we? Or am I the only one in the room? Do I have some company here? Values. An emotion can be negative, but it's also very positive. Emotions are like waves in a very calm ocean. Right? We all have experienced it. I'm not the only one there, right? When we have emotions are like waves, they come and go. Emotions are like food, we digest and then next day. But the problem with emotions is this thing I don't like. Reputation follows. How many of you agree with the question? Reputation should follow us. Show of hands. Yeah? Let's change that. Reputation doesn't follow you. For if it did, you wouldn't be forgiving anybody. No?
Unknown caller.
Right? Reputation should not follow you. That's a moment in time of one person. And we don't know what they are going to do. Right? And that's what students learn. So these guys, we take their persona test we can do every 3 to 6 months, and you're going to see a dynamic change in their business. Forget about students. I do one on myself. I'm 57. Well, turning 58. I'm changing. Right? So if we continue focusing on weaknesses, building opportunities, leveraging our strengths to get rid of our weaknesses incrementally, that's the programming we go through in those 4 years from 9 to 2. Then the resolve of the persona is pretty solid by the time students are in 11th grade and they're go-getters. I got a few go-getters right now that I'm jumping out of my chair and telling them, hey, let's go. And their parents are like, will you chill? This is just a 16-year-old here. Ma'am, please consider. And then they'll say, let's think about it. A week later, they come back and value system. Interest development becomes very important as well. We have spoken to interest. If it, for that example I shared with you, if that guy hadn't done coding, if he hadn't done that earnest project and few other things that he did, he would not have found out what his want really is. And it's custom, it's separate for each person. It's not like we can take a group of you and say, "Hey, all of you wanting to become doctors, let's put you here," and boom. Not gonna work. Because then 6 or 7 of you together are different people. You understand? Is this making sense, everyone? Okay. So these are the things we'll do. I'll let you read the busy slide later, right? But it's about connecting patterns at the end of the day to build the best academic profile, best extracurricular activities, accepting or rejecting a major choice, building the profile, because sometimes when you change your major choice, then we have to retailor the applications. And so luckily what happens is between 9th and 10th grade, we're just doing the basics for education, like, fulfilling the UC requirements. So we do less of the major work in 9th and 10th and start doing more of the major work in 11th. We can do that, right? To be more adaptive. I had a guy wanting to become a veterinarian. Then he wanted computer science because he did an earnest project and he says, "Man, I like coding. Why am I running after animals?" I said, "I don't know, man, it's you." I said, "Animals are lovely. Having a dog is beautiful." But anyway, so we can be befitting to the requirements as we need to. Making a list of colleges. How do you do that? You just say, "I want to apply." No, this is a serious family consideration. Can I afford it? What can I afford? A degree can cost up to $400,000 a year, right? I can write a check for it. But is the check any good? I'm just kidding. How to finance the education, right? Those are material things in consideration. And for students here, like, we have to, like, will you go and attend a school in Wisconsin? Like, we go to this very, we just have to be sensitive to the areas where we want to go. And family makes those choices. So we ask a bunch of questions for the college list. And then we look at the key to entry and like the target things. And then try and give you a list that makes sense for your student. Not just like, "Chalo, ye apply kar do." I'll apply to all 9 UCs, all the 23 CSUs, wherever the cards drop, great. No, shouldn't work like that. Because even in CSUs, there are CSUs you don't want to apply. Even CSUs have persona. How is San Jose State different than Cal State East Bay than San Francisco State? Study it, right? These schools have personalities. It only takes a little bit of research to understand it. And then here we have been talking about lots of things, workshops wise, time management. Our stakeholder likes the idea of time management a lot, and I agree with him. You know who you should ask the value of time? You guys value your time? You? It doesn't matter how old you are, but ask the person that knows how much time is left. Nobody does. But yet you go into some negativity health-wise, then you're shit scared at that time. And you're like, "Oh my God, I'm going to die. I must do everything like that." And then we say, time is our currency. I have to spend every minute with an ROI, with a value. No. Why not that be part of your value system today? Try and understand that for yourself. But that also depends on where your values are, where you're placing yourself. Admission officers see that. Because when you have a student that has done so many things, and then a student that has done so many things,
A no color.
so much. that shows the values. So when you are in, this is just data-wise, time management importance is realized generally in 11th grade summer. So like rising junior. That's when this starts saying, oh yeah, we gotta go. But if we have got 6th, 7th graders that can make like a small progression with tools that we'll share with you, so you can understand what time management means. And what you do is you say to yourself, look, sleeping is very important to me. Games are important to me. Screen time is important to me. And you partner with the parents who say yes. And then you have a balanced approach. It works out. Time management is one of the most important things. Right now, just to talk about myself, I'm doing 4 things. I'm a full-time college professor. I'm running a software business with about 40 people. I have a family, of course. I'm doing college counseling, serving about 28 to 30 students for the last 7 years. And then I started this work on the side. How is this possible, right? The world, you're lying. It's time management. But if I'm able to give a finite amount of time for specific outcomes to deliver the results, things move. And you know, near to morality, it's a easy one. मेरी माँ कहती चलेगा उतर नियत में मुराद नहीं जो नियत रखेगा वो हो जाएगा और जो नियत हो वे जो तुसी collaboration with right? You guys feel Pai Mardana and Guru Nanak Sahib right now? This room is called Pai Mardana room and most of you are saying, well, we're just sitting in a room, right? Let's take 30 seconds. Is Guru Nanak Sahib here? Do you feel? You have that connection? Is Pai Mardana there? Right? It's an element of your consciousness that starts right now. Right? Because if you are where you are and you're conscious about it, you're going to deliver the results. That's hyper-focus. That has a lot to do with time management. And if your brain is running on, well, there's bread pakode in the Langar hall, I expect that. That's fine. Students will think like that. I think like that. There's bread pakode in the Vashna, I just phone me time. Hyper-focus goes away. Right? But I'm just making a point on time management. When you sleep, focus on sleep. When you are spending time with family, बेटा हम थले आए हैं उन्हें डैडी मैं ना अच्छे गेमां खेल रही हूँ और यार ऐसी मूवी देख रहे हैं नहीं मैं ना मेरे दोस्त नाल गल करनी कर ला but I just tell myself you just shortchange me of my time, right? So if there are elements of time management that you guys want to follow, look at Elon Musk, look at Jeff Bezos. These folks are doing something, right? And these so-called successful individuals are able to deliver by doing simple time management. We'll show you the tools and techniques. It's up to you to adopt. So. Questions? Maybe I should pause them for a moment. Yeah.
Just a quick question. When on the last slide you were talking about like how you work with 7 to 9 children.
Yep.
So for example, our daughter is in 9th grade. She
Yep.
starts on this program.
Oh, she's fully on board for college profile creation.
So, 'cause I just want to be sure if she's gonna be like blind or, you know how,
Nobody's behind. We have a senior where she's not behind. We're gonna serve her profile the best we can. We would love to. Wait, we are befitting to the time. So, yeah,
thank you.
yeah.
So I probably messaged earlier, because I apologize for being so late.
No,
For kids starting earlier,
Yeah.
before 7,
Yeah.
6 or earlier, how do we, is it a weekly meeting session with you? Is it a Zoom session? How does it work? Just on a high
okay,
level.
let's get to that.
Okay.
Yeah, we're gonna talk about
Sorry
that.
about that. if I'm-
No, you asked an A+ question. That's awesome. But yeah, but let me touch on that.
Okay, sounds
Yeah.
good, thank you.
So then I have slides here, what we do for 7th to 9th graders, 10th graders, 11th graders, and 12th graders. I want to share this deck with you guys. So I'm not a talking head talking through the slides and reading it to you because you can read yourself. Okay. So let's get to how it'll work. Does that make sense? Okay. How will this work? So when you join, we'll do a persona analysis. That's about a 3-hour time investment from parents and the student. Okay. Then that's where we start to get to know you a little bit. That has an exercise for the student, interview with parents, some Q&A with siblings, and then we do a persona readout, which is simple data analysis of what we observe from all the things we have got. And then when we do the readout, we are asking for course correction at that point. Hey, parents, are we understanding and your student correctly or not? You might say, well, even I didn't realize the student had these traits or whatever, right? That exchange is important because we course correct the understanding. And the cusp of that work is to know the weaknesses. Because that's the cultivation we're trying to do, right? So college profile, we've already talked about, that's what we build over time. So there is copious documentation around all of those 4 things in proper templates where things get documented. And on regular basis, meaning like with our, to answer the question of the frequency, 7th to 9th, I think once a month for about an hour. And then in between, if something comes up that needs our attention, or where you need assistance on some question that comes up from school or whatever, we can answer those questions. But our progression path for 7th to 9th would be largely career exploration and persona development. Because we're trying to look at traits, right? And most of it is focus, begging their attention to focus. And with this, since 2006, our pedagogies or teaching methodologies have changed even in the classroom.
Yeah, sure.
Because this cultivates distraction.
Yeah.
Not only among kids, I mean, even myself, I mean, right? So that's what we are trying to cultivate. So how do we inspire the college profile, right? These are some of the things in our toolbox. So CPP here offers lots of these things. Tutoring in English, math, computer science. There's a science subject added recently that provides exploration in sciences. It's a growing program, right? So earnest projects and internships. So we can help you find those outside or maybe even cultivate some opportunities here. I'm not shy of taking 3 students together, got these personas, and sometimes I'll take conflicting personas and put them together just to make it interesting. Because then that's how they learn collaboration, right?
Jump into the question.
One moment. Interest development, we have spoken of. Time management, we have spoken of. Academic challenges. My student is not doing well, we are at GPA 2.5 or something. What do we do? That's a one-on-one call. That assistance is needed. Participating in school clubs, that's the biggest opportunity for interest cultivation as well as leadership formation for the college program. And then we are still doing SAT prep, right?
It's still embedded in our academics.
We have a SAT prep course.
Not exactly.
Okay. So we have these things. Yeah, please.
When you talk about earnest projects and internships, do they usually happen at the 11th grade level or sooner? What time between the 6th grade to 12th grade does those happen?
Generally, summer of 11th and 12th. Rising juniors and seniors. And depending on the students, and also you have to also keep in mind this program is going to be driven by volunteer counselors, right? So it's their ideation with you as a parent, and
In terms of time, related to that, in terms of time commitment, it's about an hour you said per month from.
right up till 11th grade, and then rising seniors, for example, they are doing their full college profile. The frequency is going to be higher because we have to do the college apps, college list, and sometimes students have already done that by summer. But if in the continuum of the work, some of that work will happen in 11th grade. But if somebody comes in at like, well, I'm a senior and I'm applying now. So we're going to do a 911 on that and say, okay, let's get all your data and assist you. And do the cadence aspect, which I had on the prior slide. That could take anywhere between 3 to 6 hours a week for about 12 weeks, which is fine, yeah. And what is our volunteer counselor role? So I've got the process and methods that I'll share, and I'll share with anybody that's interested in becoming a volunteer counselor. We have a list. I invite parents to join that because it'll at least be just interesting from the perspective of, hey, I'm not ready to take on students yet, but let me understand what it takes. Let me understand the structure. And more of you know that, the easier our job becomes. And then more of you that know that, and if you say, okay, I'm ready to take a couple of students on, why not, right? And some folks, like I was here last Sunday, some folks were saying, well, I went to school in India, but I work in this corporate. Join, learn, help, right? So what will our volunteer counselors do? They're really just mentors. We have regular meetings. Risk management is a constant part of your work, right? They're inspiring the college profile by using all of those factors. And that's my story for what next steps for all the students that are registered. If you aren't, please sign up, because the protocol is everyone that's signed up, I get the list, and then we just start calling you and we start working with you. So the first thing we're going to do is the persona test and readout, right? And as you can, imagine it's a bit of a time investment on both sides. So sign up, the faster you sign up, the faster. I want to start tomorrow. Okay. Because I want to, if I get through 2 students a day, we're doing okay, right? And then in parallel, we are going to do assignments to volunteer counselors, and they'll be getting, the people that will start serving in this area they sort of know the school systems, right? They've put kids through college. Those will be some considerations initially, right? And then when I say assignment of volunteer counselors with volunteer counselors, that's not a mistake. We have to work with them, right? ਵੀ ਜੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਸੇਵਾ ਕਰਨ ਲਈ ਸ਼ੁਰੂ ਕਰ ਰਹੇ ਹੋ ਤੇ here is the student profile and we'll match the volunteer persona to the student persona too. So it starts there. Right? And then we have ongoing meetings. So I think the duration of meetings I already shared with you. Other questions or comments, guys? I think I'm done. Yeah, that's my last slide. I should have put a question slide, but anyway, yeah. Right? Register with CPP. You're on the list. And then we spam you and call you and spam
How
over
many
to you.
times you have to meet? Is it every week or every month?
10th grade would be. So initially 3 to 4 hours commitment. And then we have to go through documentation to capture the as is states, the extracurriculars, and how are the grades. And we'll go through that, and that's what the monthly meeting is for, right? But those 4 dimensions I mentioned: interest, extracurriculars, academics, and values.
So that's for 10 grades once and then one half of the 11th and 12th.
Rising seniors will have more. 11th graders, we could still, I think, get by with 1 hour a week, but then if you say, well, we have these questions and you are trying to do these extra things, and that's a function of interest. If the interest is there, well, we're all in. We'll work with you, and if we need to have a bi-weekly meeting, we'll do it bi-weekly. But historically, what's worked for, like the work I've done personally, from 7 to 11, it's about 1 hour. Month is typically okay. With the caveat that parents can reach out for Q&A. If a school counselor ne kya tha unki kariye or something, whatever.
And then meetings, whether monthly or whatever the frequency might be, are those remote or face to face, which part of the town area,
Zoom, sir.
everything remote.
All Zoom. Unless I'm at the Gurudwara or volunteer counselors at the Gurudwara and they say we want to meet face to face, then that's their choice. It's between you and your volunteer counselor.
So it's more like one-on-one?
One-on-one. Can't be any other way. Unless we're doing like an essay writing workshop. All right, guys, come on in, submit your writing samples. This is the process for writing an essay. And we can do a 1 hour workshop, but then that ingestion of that data and saying, is this a good essay for a UC or not? That has to be one. Like what your kid will write will be different than hers and so on. So-
But Joanna, is it a kind of test you try to conduct or just you talk with the students and parents and?
It has 4 things. Usually. One is introspection that the student sits through for an hour documenting their traits. So if the student says that, I mean, I don't want to leave that as a big secret, it's not. That I am resilient. So then the student has to say, why do you think you're resilient? Because I finish my homework on time, I'm ahead of the schedule. If I'm confronted with something very tough, I deal with it like that or whatever. So they write a sentence or 2 for each. And so there is a historical capture of how many traits can a student write in an hour, depending on the age group. So I have some data around that. Then the interview with parents is Q&A, and I shared some questions like, asking mom, hey, did you think when you were pregnant with the child that this child should become something? And I really asked that question because of my own. Sometimes parents say that is too personal, we're not going to answer. Okay. And whether I have Asian families or Caucasian, I mean, it doesn't matter, right? They typically, like 99% they've answered, and one person said, this is too personal. And ma'am, can I tell you the story? And she's like, yeah, you seem to be a storyteller. So I shared the story she told me. So you have that interview, you have the write up, and then with siblings there is a Q&A, and the interview can be different with each parent, depending on how you respond to the question. And then we take all of that and
Normally you have those 70 questions to say.
no, those are, I might as well ask like or beta or bachi when what month was they born, that's the persona. Well, my daughter is a Leo. Okay, so that's because Myers-Briggs or Piercy temperament tests, they box you. You have 12 or 16 boxes. World doesn't work like that. You know, I'm not ENTJ or whatever. Right? I've gone through those tests and it has to be, each person is different. Each person is a bit different. Does that help?
Yeah.
Okay. Yes,
I'm sorry, I came in late, probably.
we have a
this was-
recording for you.
Okay, so probably this was covered, but these volunteer counselors that will be assigned to you, are there just parents who want to volunteer and they've gone through the process with their kids? Or there will be some people in the pool which are already working with schools and are counselors there to know the current trends and all?
Oh my, beautiful, my God, that would be beautiful. If you are in those shoes, you're ahead of the game, obviously, doing it for a living. So that'd be lovely. Please chime in and take on. But the ideation is, well, I'm only coming up with process and methods that I have defined over 7 years. And those are not perfect. Those are, you know, my suggestion is, well, here's a starting point and evolve those as you see. You don't have to inherit those as they come. But they're well cooked, I would say. They're about 70%. But then I'm creating a 6-hour course, 6 1-hour sessions. That'll be recorded also, just like today's session. We go through the process, or like how to inspire cultivation using the system. And you know, you can say, okay, well, I'll go through that and see if it's good use of my time or not. And if you're like, hey, I got it, you sign up. But if somebody's they're a volunteer, aspiring volunteer counselor, and they're like a newbie and they're not conversant with the education system, they're gonna have a lot of question marks around, well, I don't know what to do, then the idea would be to just maybe partner with me. I'll take on a few students and then we just sit together and get their instruction, say, hey, we're training, we'll work together. So that'll happen as well for folks that, and I encourage as many of you as possible to join the training part for 6 hours. It's a 6-hour commitment over 6 weeks. And you learn the metrics, you know how to at least populate the college application and among other things. There's about 20, I think we have a list of 26 or 20. I forget now. So we'll share those. I will have recordings, we'll create a discussion board. So if you have questions, you can ask those. So that cultivation will happen in family. And then they say, you know, yes, our intention is we are going to be successful. Failure is not an option for anybody. Failure is not an option for anybody. Whether it's the student, whether it's the volunteer counselor, or whether it's me, because, you know, their reputation follows you, right? Because this is like, please.
Thank you so much. This was very, very helpful.
Thank you, Ji.
I came a little late, but it was amazing. Thank you.
We're gonna have a, thank you.
Let's have a round of applause. Lucky that he's part of our team and he's brought this method of counseling to us for our college prep program. We started this college prep program. We want our community to become excellent, and good education is a way to do that. And we want every child in our community, whether he wants to be later a truck driver or he wants to be a CEO of another company, we want them to be well educated. A well educated truck driver will open a trucking corporation.
education makes a big difference. His views will be much bigger than just being a driver. Okay, no profession is lower than the other, but how you approach it is very important. What is your horizon? What is your view of things? Really matters. There are a few things, to bring excellence in our community. What I urge is that all of us need to learn that. That is time management and punctuality. If a meeting is called, please be there on time. Budget the time. For example, it takes to travel. It takes time to park the car, or if you need to go to Langar Hall before, or whatever it is. So please budget your time properly and then be on time. That's one really strong recommendation to our community. When we treat with our outside schools or something, we are always on time. But when it comes to Gurdwara or Gurdwara related activities, we become very lax. And we have to change that attitude. We should be on time. Other thing is that, this kind of effort, if you go to outside consultants, we charge you tens of thousands of dollars to give you this level of kind of training. School counselors are good, but if school counselor, there may be 2 or 3 counselors, they have to deal with 1,000 students. They're not going to give you one-on-one attention like Professor Sukhjit Singh is proposing. So we may not be as good experts, but considering that this is one-on-one and it's in partnership with the parents, I think we will do fine. So this program is something really worth considering. If you have not registered, please register. We are asking for only a modest $250 a year. And we have link call here, Lucy here. Please contact them to get help with registering your children. And we want to see all of you here, all the children who are 7th grade and above enrolled in this program. We might even extend this to lower grades in future years, but we are also kind of in a pilot mode. We're trying to learn ourselves what works, what doesn't work. And we all together have to make this program a big success. Let's all become stakeholders. Also, let your friends know if they have children in 7th grade and above to come and register. So thank you very much. Thanks for coming. Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa. And once again,
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
And failure is not an option, guys, at any level.
one more minute. We will have those who came late. We will have another orientation on 8th of September. That's the second Sunday of September. So please make a note of that. You will get, I think, was there a sign up?
Yeah, so for the orientation on September 8th is basically the other teachers for math.
For folks online, Alok ji and Upal ji, do you have any questions? You can type for me in the chat, please. We also have a recording of this, Ji, that will send it out to everyone. Thank you, everyone.